Good evening, and welcome to the council member for June 18th, council meeting for June 18th here at Canaveral City Hall. Would you please stand and have the Pledge of Allegiance, please? Mr. Randalls, would you lead us, please?
I'd be honored if you face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Rocky. Good evening, everybody. Could you call the roll, please?
Mayor Pro Tem Brown.
Here.
Mayor Hogue.
Here.
Councilmember Morrison.
Here.
Councilmember Randalls. Councilmember Raymond.
Here.
Okay, under public participation, I have several cards. So our first one is Lagan Conlando, I think is the name. Logan or Lagan?
Logan.
Logan? Oh, actually, it's Logan. I'm sorry. Just over to the podium, please.
I'll pass it out.
I just speak into this and that works? Okay. I came here today to talk to you about the Get On Track initiative. As many of you probably know, especially if you're parents, Cocoa Beach High School is the zoned high school and middle school for Cape Canaveral and Cocoa Beach. The track program there is one of the more popular sports, just in high school and middle school in general, and is one of the most successful in the school's history, having 2/3 of the state champions come from track or cross country. Currently, if you look at the cards that were handed out, the track is falling apart and in poor condition. It's missing a lane, and it is asphalt in yards, which is against regulations to hold high school track meets. We hold also every middle school track meet on that poor surface. Our goal is to raise $450,000 to replace that track with a rubberized one that can be used for the community, events such as Special Olympics and other ways to create revenue through tourism, and to be able to hold track meets for high school. We are hoping, we know it's short notice and you can't take a vote on it tonight, but to get a donation from the City of Cape Canaveral in order to help us reach this goal. If you look on the back of the cards as well, you'll see that we aren't just asking for donations, we are also doing different fundraising events to try to reach this goal. We are very serious about trying to get this done. We are going to open up the track, as I mentioned earlier, to the public for both Cocoa Beach and Cape Canaveral. So it would be the community's track as well, not just the school's track. That is what I wanted to say. So, thank you. Actually, one thing real fast. If the city of Cape Canaveral donates to the Cocoa Beach High School track, we will put their name on the donor board make sure that they are recognized as a significant sponsor to the project. All right, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Logan, we can't really do anything tonight, but we'll look into this and you'll be here. Thank you. Thanks for your time. Dennis Schultz. Yes, sir.
Before I get started, can I give this to you guys? Last time they told me my time was up, so I always wanted to make sure
You got a clock, right? It's right on the screen.
I understand that, but you guys tell me when the 2.5 minutes is up.
You want us to tell you?
Yeah, I'll give it to you right now. Sorry, wrong one. Maybe tell me all like 2.5 minutes. It's a two.
It's right there in front of you on that screen.
No. Tell me when I've got 2.5 minutes so I can Last time, I didn't say a word. Speak to the podium, please. Yes, my name is Dennis Schultz. I live in 561 Castabella Drive, and the unit next to me is 551. And the class action suit that we're going to try against the City Hall is that you guys, for years, we had nothing to see but top of stacks and cruise ships. Finally, I built a new port, and it was beautiful. We had a ship at night, early in the morning, but somebody let these hotels go 6 stories high. You couldn't see these ships anymore. So we lost a lot of money on the price of our condos. Now, everybody's mad about it. So I want to know who, if we're going to take it to court. I got 4 lawyers that sent me here to ask about this. It's a class action suit. It's going to take costs. They're going to go to court, and we're going to see a judge, and we're going to talk to them and see what they say. And hey, what can I tell you? That's it. So basically, that's it, guys. I'm not a lawyer. They're not allowed to be here. I don't think they're allowed to speak here. I don't know if they can come to a meeting or not. But if you want to know who their names are, you have to go to court to find out. That's all I can tell you. All right? End of story. Bye-bye. That's it. So I did it in time, huh? Yeah.
Are you through, sir? Are you finished?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Mr. Dickey, you would like to say something?
No, I talked to him last time I was here. He can put a sock in it. I don't want to talk to him.
We're not having him talk to you. He's going to address us, sir. You don't have to listen. You can do whatever you want to do, but he's talking to us.
And
Go
by the
ahead.
way, the lawyers told me this. There's this thing called.
Sir, you need to go to the podium if you're going to.
Brevard
And your
County
time.
Commission said they never.
Sir, hello.
They
Hello.
never heard him. Never heard of it.
Hello.
Never heard of it.
Sir, you're through, or you want
No,
to
I'm
finish?
finished.
Okay, then
Silly, you want
please
to
have a
go
seat. Mr. Dickey, did you want to say something to the council?
Well, I'm not sure I really should say anything. I'm familiar with Mr. Schultz and his concerns. I've had conversations with him, well, maybe just one.
David, this way.
But yeah, I've not been contacted, or nor am I aware of the city being contacted by any attorneys regarding this issue. But you know, all I can say is we've followed our city codes and processes to the T with respect to our hotel projects in the city. So I'm not aware of any issues that we would have there, but you'll find attorneys to do a lot of things.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Tim Rosenka.
Good evening, Mayor, members of City Council. My name is Kim Rosenka. I'm with the law firm of Cantwell and Goldman in Cocoa Village. I'm here representing Wave Development LLC. With me also is Ashri Gall, who has also signed a card in case you have questions. We're here to request that you direct your city manager, David Green, to advertise a public hearing for you to consider a port of call development agreement. This is a beautiful project that's been planned where the current putt-putt golf location is right now. I provided to you a series of documents. The first is the complete CAB packet that shows the rendering and the diagram of this project. This has been a project that was put to the city back in February, actually February 20th of 2018. Mr. Gall met with David Dickey and Todd Morley about this project. This was after Mr. Gall pulled a prior proposed development agreement for hotel in 2015 because he was told the city would require a large financial contribution for public facilities in order to approve the DA. This project has been in the works for about 18 months. It was presented to the DRC on April 11th, 2018, which approved the concept and the shared parking agreement or the arrangement. We asked city staff and the city attorney to confirm that this project could go forward by the development agreement process, and we were finally able to meet with staff on August 8th of 2018. On August 10th, we received confirmation that the project could go forward as a port of call development agreement. I have for you the project, the site plan. This was in the packet. I also have for you the November 14th proposal that we finally did send, that was sent to the DA, with the DA to Mr. Dickey. And then in the packet is the August 10th email that we received from the city attorney saying, yes, this can go forward by the development agreement process, and it will require approval by city council. We were told by staff that we should continue the CAB hearing until after the DA process was completed. We submitted the draft on November 14th. I did not receive comments from the city attorney until February 21st of 2009. And this was after I requested on February 19th that the DA be scheduled for hearing before the city council. That email is with you as well. On March 1st, I sent another email to the city council, or to Anthony Garganese and David Dickey, requesting that this be set before city council for hearing. My client should, and then you have the May 1st letter. We again asked that it be set, and it has not been set. My client should be allowed to seek approval of the proposed DA from the only body that has the authority to approve it or disapprove it, and that's you, the city council. The development agreement meets the community vision statement. It is fair, reasonable, and will make it an attractive addition to the city at the city's gateway. It's unreasonable for David Green to be able to stall this development by refusing to bring it to you for your consideration. My client believes he's being treated unfairly and asks that you direct David Green to set this for a public hearing. Thank you.
Well, we can't take no action tonight, but we will be back to you sometime, I assume.
Thank you, sir.
Osher, did you want to?
No, thank you, sir.
This is you.
Just in case if you had any questions.
All right. Completes the cards for public hearing, I believe. Let me look real quick. Item 2. Okay, the rest of them are on items on the agenda.
I had one, Mr. Mayor.
Sorry? On items 4 and 5.
But then under two, public participation.
Right, when we get to items 4 and 5.
No, I meant for this agenda item, public participation.
I'm not hearing, sir?
I wanted to speak to public participation for this part and later on fours and fives.
Okay, I think you want to do public participation and then items 4 and 5 later. Got you. All right, come on up. I'm sorry. I didn't see your little,
Make it confusing.
okay.
My name is Patrick Campbell, 307 Surf Drive, Cape Canaveral. I have a couple things from the latest weekly update that I'd like you to consider. I see where we're sending 4 people to the League of Cities Conference. I'd like for you to think about, is that really a cost-effective manner, sending 4 people to the same conference? Might want to think about that. The other one I want to talk about out of the same weekly update is the code enforcement case list. I'd like you to take a look at that. It says it's updated weekly. I don't see where it's updated weekly. The information in it isn't complete. There are code enforcement cases that I'm aware of that aren't on that list. So I'd like for you to take a look at that too. Thank you.
Mr. Campbell, my question is, I think 4 of us went to the League of Cities last year. Did you go, Wes? The League of Cities last year?
Yeah, we were there
I
together.
think 4 of us went last year and you didn't have an issue. Why is it this year all of a sudden you've got an issue with it?
It just seems like as the city works to try and spend the money wisely, that just stuck out to me, that it seemed like, you know, why 4 people? Why not 2 people? What would be the benefit of sending all 4 to the same conference? If you want to get the biggest bang for your buck and you got places that you'd like to go and things you'd like to learn, maybe split it up, go to different conferences and gather more information than going to one place.
You might talk about the
May I
policy
say
committee.
something?
The policy committee.
May I make a comment, please?
Go ahead. Go ahead, miss.
Mr. Campbell, you may be unaware that when we go, we represent the city of Cape Canaveral. And many of us sit on the policy committees. For example, I'm on the transportation policy and intergovernmental relations. I know for a fact that Mr. Randalls is on a different policy committee, and the mayor is on another policy committee. And I know for a fact that Mayor Pro Tem will be going to the ethics training. I went to ethics training today down at Satellite Beach. What I think that you need to understand is we use the Florida League of Cities. In this Quality Cities magazine, you will see a picture of me at the IEMO. These are specially designed classes that we go to, and what we're doing there is we're learning how to be a good public servant. These are educational things for us, and the community needs to know what we're doing. At the policy committee meetings, we talk about transportation, affordable housing, many, many issues, train service possibilities, and land use, utilities. These are very, very important policy committees, and we represent our city. Thank you.
And also, Mr. Campbell, we spoke, that was about the time they had the Spelman Douglas shooting. They let all the city, what can we do as a city representative to impact our local schools? I think it was very important and very informative. And for you to sit up there and act like you don't think it's important, I just don't think you have the information. And what gets me is last year we went to it and all of a sudden, I don't know if it's politically motivated, but you had nothing to say.
Well, you know, I find the accusatory tone to be a little bit offsetting. I asked a question about cost effectiveness of sending 4 people to the same conference. I don't know how that can be construed to be anything but a request to be thinking about it, and if you have, then that's wonderful. I'm just asking to be good stewards of the public's money. Thank you.
We're on different policy committees. I think that you understand that. Thank you.
Okay, we have,
Thank you for understanding that I understand that.
all right, let's move on. Consent agenda. Item number 1 is approve the minutes of the meeting. Anybody care to remove it for corrections or anything? Or we'll go for a motion to approve it.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve consent agenda item number 1 to approve the minutes from the May 21st, 2019 City Council meeting.
I second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes from May 21st, 2019. Call the roll, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Brown,
4.
Mayor Hogue,
4.
Councilmember Morrison,
Or
Councilmember Randalls,
For the motion.
Councilmember Raymond.
Or
Okay, into old business. We have 2 items on old business. We have item number 2, and we must have a majority vote to remove that item for discussion. Would somebody want to do the motion to majority vote?
is there, I don't know if there were any public comments on this particular one. Is this the time to take that up, or do we need to make the motion now?
Well, we won't have any discussion on it until it gets to the floor.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to take item number 2, remove that from the table for consideration, so to have a discussion.
Okay, we need a second to move it. No second, motion fails. Item number 3, discuss addition language to our ordinance, section 205. That's old business, up for discussion.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, this is one that I put on the agenda last week and we didn't have enough time to get to. I just want to explain this briefly and try to bring this home as clear as I can. I found myself in some situations where, and I tried to explain this as good as I can. I'm going to try to get the agenda up here. Give me 1 second. When we as a council, the question that I have is when the city manager, and I think this has happened, I don't want to speak for the council, it's probably happened to all of us, are instructed to speak directly to a director or staff. I don't see anywhere in the ordinances where that's allowed. And I would like to take that opportunity within, reasonable measures. I understand that, instructing directors is not what I'm talking about. That's pretty clear in our ordinances. certainly we have investigative rights to ask questions, but when we're going to work one-on-one with a department director on an issue, the city manager has told me in the past, go ahead, Wes, work with that director. And where I struggled to find that in the ordinances is the reason why I brought this up. And I wanted to give the city manager explicit authority to do that, to where I feel like, we feel protected if we're talking and working with a director. And maybe I have a blind spot in the ordinances that Anthony can help me out. Maybe this concern can be put away pretty quickly, but I do find it to be a bit uncomfortable if I'm working with any level of staff that in the past where our city manager has, been a little clear on code of conduct violations. He said that a few times. I know that in our strategic planning meeting, we had instances where we were engaging with department directors, and that was where this all really came from, to say that while I believe the city manager, and I appreciate it because a lot of city managers, completely control and have a bottleneck. Ours is opened up and said, hey, work with staff. That's where I felt like we had an opportunity to add in section maybe 205D, where the city manager may provide an authorization form, language, something to help us as a council to have a little bit more comfort. Again, he would fully control that process. I think that he needs to have the ability to run the staff, but when we're just working outside of the ordinances, maybe we're not. I can't find anywhere. I do find that to be a bit uncomfortable, and I just want to make sure that we are within the bylaws, and this might be an opportunity to do that. So, thank you.
Mr. Randall.
Mayor, may I address that and ask a question to the city attorney? The section that we're discussing here is section 2-05. That is in our city charter. If indeed we don't have the authority to change something out of the city charter that the referendum of the residents have voted on, without them, it'd take an act by the residents voting saying we want this to happen. We had a charter review 6, 7, 8, 9 years ago, something like that, a group of citizens voted on it and met for weeks, I guess, and went over every line of our original city charter, which was back in, I guess, 1966, and revised some things that they thought was more in tune. But it is something that, if I understand it, it would be, we can't change it. We can't say, hey, attorney, change this. This would be a change in the charter, and we'd have to have a charter review committee to make it. Is that correct?
That's correct. You cannot change 2.05 subparagraph C, interference with administration, which is in the charter. The voters would have to approve that. My understanding of the request is, I think Councilman Morrison is talking about adopting an ordinance to implement the provisions of 2.05. And whether or not an ordinance is even required to do that more clearly is a policy decision for the council. Just to kind of go over this section of the charter, 2.05 subparagraph C allows city council members to make inquiries with staff. However, they have to deal solely through the city manager relative to that, like working with staff. And as you know, city council members cannot give orders either publicly or privately to members of city staff, because that would be prohibited by charter. So, council has the ability to make inquiries, ask questions, right? But to give instructions, based on this model provision of the charter, one must go solely through the city manager to get that done, because you all are members of a governing body that act collectively by majority vote. The city manager is the one pursuant to city charter that gives administrative direction to staff, and only he is authorized to do so under the charter. So the question, as I understand it, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Wes, I think you're asking the council to maybe adopt an ordinance to implement this provision, and that's your request. Whether that's necessary, is another question for the council to decide whether they want to go down that route.
That is correct, and I don't.
Okay.
I'm more concerned about dealing with the situations that we can find ourselves into. And this may not be the best path, and think it's an excellent question, but if there's a way to implement it, it's that in-between stage of where me and a director, maybe I've got ideas that I'm sharing, and the city manager says, oh yes, go meet with one of our directors. Well, here we are meeting for an hour, we're collaborating. That falls in that gray area that I don't know where, I mean, it could be interpreted, if you just read right here, that the direction of the supervision of the city manager solely, as you said, Anthony, through the city manager. The city manager's not there, he's instructing me to interface. I could argue it from both sides, and is there an opportunity to make this a little bit more clear, to give both sides some comfort when working?
Les, can I ask you, what do you propose to gain out of it, other than the fact that you can go talk to a director, lay out your ideas, and then that director either talks to you, or tells you they're working on it, or whatever's going on, or something's not taking place. Then that director goes to the city manager, and that city manager only acts upon the council's direction. So you're asking for something for one council member to be able to go in and implement something that maybe the council hasn't even directed or going to give direction to do. So in the 24 years I haven't had a problem with the way the council charter is set up, and the city charter is set up. Council, the city manager is the governing body of the staff. Mm-hmm. We direct him. Mm-hmm. Now he will come to us as a body in the open here and lay out what maybe you had brought to Mr. Dickey or maybe one of the other staff members, and see if the council will move forward with that. Otherwise, you're implementing something that won't work.
Yeah, I think there's
it has to be directed by the council, period. If the council don't agree to it, then it ain't gonna go anywhere.
And I think my track record has proven that I bring everything to this council first as a discussion item. I've put several things on there to respect that process that you described.
Okay.
What this is in the event that I go meet with one of our department directors, the city manager comes back and says, I never gave you authority to meet with them. And I said, oh yes, you did. You said we could meet whenever. And he goes, where in the ordinances? Right here, Wes, everything goes through me. What do I do in that situation?
I've never had a city manager in all of.
I know
tell me that.
You haven't, but
I can't go in
I'm
and
just trying to figure out, going off word of mouth, where in the ordinances a council member in the future and today is protected. I don't know where you were protected, but
I have that protection under the charter. He runs the city, basically. I, as a council member, I can go in and talk to anybody, but I can't tell David Dickey, well, I need you to get the P&Z on board and get this thing changed. I can't do that. I can go in and...
How can you talk to somebody if you have to work exclusively through the city manager?
I don't work exclusively through, we don't have to work through the city manager. I don't have to go into the city manager. I can go into anybody's office at any time, at a given time. Normally, I will give them the courtesy and ask them to meet with them. And sometimes I'm in City Hall and I do have something come up and I see somebody and I'll stop for a minute and talk with them and discuss it and go on about my business. I don't have a problem.
And that can be interpreted as a violation of the charter.
No, it is not. It is not.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Anthony. If we can get back to, do you understand the uncomfort that I'm describing? And if it can, I would love to be able to work that way, but I don't feel that way every day.
I've never had anybody tell me not to do it.
And I can't go by a word. I've got to go by the law. And to me, it's a little loose. If you can give me an out, Anthony, some comfort, I think we could move on. Is there another section that I'm missing but just to have a discussion, just to say, as the mayor said, I can just go talk to any director I want.
This provision is not foreign to municipalities in the United States. I mean, this paragraph comes out of the model city charter adopted by the National Civic League. The broad context of this provision is really to protect the form of government that the citizens of Cape Canaveral has adopted. But for this provision, in my humble opinion, The city manager, city council form of government doesn't work. The city council, city manager form of government has a city council, a governing body that acts by majority vote. And it has a city manager that's charged with the administrative affairs of the city and is responsible for dealing with the city employees, except for those that are appointed by the city council. So it's there to protect the form of government. Council members can freely make inquiries of city staff. That is not prohibited by this provision of the charter. However, anything more than an inquiry has to go through the city manager for the reasons I just expressed, to protect the form of government. And you know, if you can't follow the rule here, I mean, there is risk. May give council members some discomfort, because if you violate this provision of the city charter, the city council can remove you from office. Under another provision of the city charter regarding forfeiture of office. So, you know, it's there, again, to protect the form of government that the citizens have imposed. And, you know, I don't know what do you mean by getting some sort of comfort. I mean, you can freely make inquiries. You can bring things to the city council because you're an elected official. I mean, you can put items on the agenda because the council's policy is individual council members can put items on the agenda. So there's, what else, you know, anything else, like directing staff, requires city council, city manager approval. Otherwise, you go solely through the city manager.
That makes sense, and we can move on. If it's moving forward, I will just continue to put things on the agenda, and the next time that, if this even happens again, the city manager asked me to work directly with one of the directors. I'm not inquiring, I'm certainly not instructing, but we're collaborating. I'm gonna just avoid those situations unless the city manager can be there. I think that's the best path forward.
Or you can you go through the city manager, and the city manager authorizes a council member and directs a staff person to work with an individual council member to work up an item. That's perfectly appropriate under the.
And how do we show that authorization? How do we prove that authorization? That's exactly what I was trying to get to.
Yeah. Well,
do you see where that can get loose?
I hear what you're saying. You know, there needs to be a level of trust
And respect.
For the system to work. You know, but I can understand where, you know, some council members, we would like to see certain things in writing perhaps, or whatever, but, you know, I take the city manager's word, any city manager I work with, if he says, okay, go ahead and work with a staff person, I take it for face value. I mean, that's his authorization.
I think the issue, you know, if you have an issue and you want to work on it with one of the staff, you go to city manager and he says, go ahead and work it out with Mr. Dickey. Before you get to Mr. Dickey's office, Mr. Dickey's going to have orders from the city manager to work with you. So it's something it's not anything that's hidden to do anything different. It's all there. It's just in plain English, but it works. I've never seen it not work. I have, in all the years I've been doing it, I've never, Rocky, I don't know, Rocky's been probably a number of times.
There's several other aspects. From time to time, we, as council people, think we kind of give orders to the workers, and that's not true in our city manager form of government. And that's part of it. It keeps us from stopping by with somebody and saying, hey, I need this done. Can you get this done? We don't have that authority. Our connection is with the city manager. We employ one person to carry out the policies that we set up here, all of us together. Another reason is if indeed I take the opportunity and go to the finance director and I say, I really got to talk about our budget that's coming up, and the city manager doesn't know it, and he's got the city finance director doing a busy project, I'm taking away his time, and he feels, well, I'll run it by the city manager, and that's going to be his first answer.
That's why you make appointments. They're called appointments.
Generally, the few times that I've had occasion to really get down into the books of budget or financing or something, they call and set an appointment up with the director and meet me in a room with the book, and he already knows the subject. He's done the research. He's got the answer. He says, here's what we're doing and here's why we're doing it. But he knows about it in advance. It's not just me saying, hey, I got to talk to you about this. I think it keeps a better tab on what is working if it goes through the city manager, and he knows that he is given an assignment, and from time to time he'll say, how you coming with that councilman about that work? But if he don't know it, it's cumbersome in the fact that, but in our form of government, which is the city manager, we hire one individual to do the day-to-day items that we set out. As for the hiring and firing, and we don't hire people or fire people or get involved in that, shouldn't. We simply say we would like to add one more here or do there, but and we approve the budget to do it. But we try to keep our fingers out of the day-to-day work. We should. We don't always do it, but we should.
Okay, that's one more time, then we're going to close.
Just a few comments. Time is money, and I feel that when we do talk to a staff member, if we have an appointment, and then we are still taking their time, and they have work to do also. And I think that I would just like to say I respect the city charter. The residents voted on this charter, and I think this is something we all need to respect, and respect each other, and respect our staff. Thank you.
Thank you all very much for that.
All right, let's move on to public hearings. We have ordinance 10, 2019, second reading. Item number 4, Mr. Gargadino.
Ordinance 10-2019, ordinance of the City Council of the City of Cape Canaveral, Brevard County, Florida, amending the city code regarding the payment of impact fees, providing for the repeal of prior inconsistent ordinances and resolutions, incorporation into the code's severability and an effective date. This is second and final reading of this ordinance, also a public hearing item. There have been no changes to this ordinance since first reading. Mayor.
Okay, council? This has been before you once before, so I didn't have the opportunity to be here, but I'm very well aware of what we do and how we did it and why we do it and how it got there. So I will leave it up to you.
No, go ahead, Mike. You got something?
Well, reference to impact fees, I understand how the city would want all the money up front. And I kind of agree with it, but is there any kind of provision that maybe we could lessen the percent instead of being 100% up front, maybe reduce it a little bit, especially when we're dealing with residential properties and even maybe some of the development issues instead of 100% up front? Is there any, I'm just putting this out there, percentages that maybe that makes it too complicated? Who am I?
I don't have any really input on it other than the fact that I have talked to several people about it, and the people that I've talked to, I haven't had anybody complain. They said it should have been done a long time ago.
We had 2 developers speak in favor
right.
of it. We had 2 developers come to speak in favor of the impact fees
I can
being
see,
collected up front.
I can see if somebody's trying to build an individual home that it might be a hard impact on just one single person, but all those fees are usually calculated into the person's financial backing from the lender, and it's not an imposition on the person personally until, house payment comes every month. That's the imposition. That's just an imposition anyway, so.
Mr. Mayor, can I make a quick comment?
Sure.
Yeah, I think it's important to remember that with impact fees, the city collects our own as well as county impact fees. And the county impact fees are the big nut. The county transportation impact fee is the big nut across the board. As an example, I was anticipating somebody might want to ask this question this evening. I'm going to keep it very brief. The city's impact fees, the total of them are $1,800, give or take. The county transportation impact fee is $4,300, and the school is $1,900. So let's just say $6,300 versus $1,800. Now, the county ordinance states that the county impact fees will be collected at CO on the back end of the project. And that's what we've been historically doing, is collecting our $1,800 worth in this example on the back end. So we're not suggesting we do anything with the county ordinance, and when we collect those, that's all going to stay the same. So this ordinance would, in effect, for a single-family home, basically accomplishing what you're wanting to do, Mayor Pro Tem, is we'd be collecting $1,800 up front at BP, and then the $6,300 at the CO. And again, that's an example for single-family residents. So I think we get there with what you're wanting to do. The large percentage of it is on the back end of the project for a single-family home.
I'd like to comment to that, but I think that, and I'm going to use that same illustration. If the 1,800 comes to the city of Cape Canaveral, what Mayor Pro Tem Brown is suggesting is that 900, as an idea, if it was a simple 50-50 split, 900 would be paid maybe at issuance of permit, and then the remaining 900 with the remaining county would be due with the balance. I certainly see the benefit in that, and I think that would help free up cash, and certainly, pay as you go and to accomplish those milestones. So that's something that I think would be a little bit more resident and business friendly.
I'm not familiar with how the construction aspect and the financing of a construction home that you're building. So if I were to build a home and financing through the bank, that impact fee would be included in what I get for my construction loan, or?
Yes.
Yeah, typically that's how it works, and as the loan is being underwritten, all of those permitting fees and all of the impact fees are calculated. So there's no surprises. So that's all known, and that's typically wrapped into the construction financing.
So that's including in your qualifying for the loan?
I'm not sure about that. I'm not going to answer that one. But my assumption would be yes. I mean, the bank is not going, I mean, they look at that, there's a certain amount, there's a amount, construction and then the soft costs, and those impact fees would be a soft cost. So they're not, I would imagine that would be the case. They would be considering that as well as part of the financing and underwriting.
Nothing further.
Mr. Chair, I'll speak about it as I understand it. Currently, well, I maybe need to go back before that. Impact fees is collected on new development with the idea that if a new hotel or whatever comes in here, it's going to increase the traffic, which is the transportation for the county. At some point in time, we're going to have to increase the sheriff's protection, fire protection, the library. A large group, whether it's a group of condominium homes or a condominium where people live, it's going to impact the resident community. And currently, impact fees are collected so that new development pays the equitable share of public improvements that must be constructed to serve the new growth. Good example is where this came about. It was mentioned indeed that we had some people with a new hotel come in and speak that they would pay it in advance. We are working on this motion to shift the timing of the impact fee payment at the time of the building permit issuance. That means currently you pay it when you get your CO. When the hotel is finished and you're ready for the first customer, or your condominium's finished and you're ready for the first tenant, that's when you pay the impact fees for the, I won't say damage, but for the increase is needed for your work. The problem that we are having, when we used to do it different, we used to collect it up front, and some developers said, well, you know, you're making me pay when I don't have any income. and that's exactly true. The reason that we changed it at that time, and it's been many years ago when we went to there, to give it to when the customer had the ability to collect from the tenants or from the condominiums. The problem comes in, and a good example is the hotels we have on West Central now, is the road is inadequate to serve those hotels. So either one or two things is going to happen, and we've talked to each one of the developers, investors I like to call them rather than developers, because they're investing a lot of their money or somebody's money. The investor, it really gets down to the day that he opens that property for the first customer, our road hasn't been constructed yet, or else it's in sad shape, as Central will be a year from now when the hotels finally have their opening house. So in speaking to the investor, he says, wow, well, I got to have a road. Well, we would like to use your impact fees that you pay us on the day you get your CO, Certificate of Occupancy, and open, to start designing, doing test borings, doing engineering for the road, so that when you open, you have a new road that will accommodate it. And that's the purpose where we're saying we would like to invest it up front. We'd like to have that to do the diagram of the road, to do that. It sounds simple. It gets a little more involved, simply because if indeed we have to do the engineering of the road, which we'll have to do, and build it, maybe a foundation, do test borings, the whole impact, we don't have the money to do it, so that means we go into the general fund that we had to police, fire, things like that, take the money out to do the road before we get our reimbursement. So the ad valorem taxes is really going to have to pay for it if we don't get the impact fees in advance on a big. So the developers, investors see that and they say, you know, I hate to pay you in advance, but it assures them and us that they're serious about it. We don't get half-finished buildings that don't get completed, like perhaps some cities do, where the impact fees have been paid and it just isn't no longer feasible. It is a struggle for the investor, but it allows us to put up whatever work we need to do as a city. If it needs to be a new sewer line, if we need to increase something, which is always our responsibility. And that gives us the money to work without taking it from the other general fund of operations to do it. Kind of simple, but it's a change. The larger impacts are really particular demands placed on the city in advance of the issuance of the work permit. So we're going to be ready for the new development when it comes. And
Good
whether
explanation.
it's enlarge the sewer treatment plant, whatever it takes, we're going to have it ready if we get the impact fees in advance. That road's.
You want to speak? I'm sorry, Rocky.
sorry.
I know, I was just looking.
He's not finished
Oh,
yet.
okay.
Okay. I didn't,
Are you finished, Rocky?
if
I'm
he's through,
finished, yes.
yeah.
That's
We
clear
want to
enough
move
for
on.
me.
Are you ready for a motion?
We want
I
to move on.
understand.
No, we got to go public participation.
No.
Are you,
I'm
anybody?
done. I'm in favor of it.
Well, you kept
We-
looking down like you wanted to say something.
I'm very much in favor of
Okay,
this.
all right. We're going to go to public participation, and we have a card on item number 4, and that's from Pat Campbell. Pat Campbell.
Thank you. Now I'm not sure. We're talking a lot about impact fees and developers, but my concern was with building permits, primarily building permits for the average citizen. Is that part of this impact fee discussion? Because there was a chart about rate escalation for building permits. No. That's item 5, I believe. Oh, I'm sorry. Can I defer it to item 5 then, if it's building permit fees?
Okay, well, you had item 4 and 5, so we're on item 4.
Okay, so I'll sit down and come back up for 5. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
No, Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry, that's not, the building permit, the permit fees question's been put to bed. The council adopted that through resolution last month, perhaps? So, yeah, that particular item's put to bed.
Permit fees, but.
Permit fees, yeah.
You had item 5.
I'm sorry.
Code enforcement issue he has, or. That item 5 you have is listed as code enforcement. Is that what we're going to be doing? Okay. When we get to item 5 then, okay. Item 4 is fees, but he's happy, I guess. All right, council, back to us. Anybody else on participation? I'm sorry. You don't have a card, but if you need to speak, we'll let you speak. Close public participation. Okay, sir. Up to the council, to the podium, please. Name and address and so forth.
Name is Dennis Schultz. Dennis Schultz, I've lived in 561 Canaveral Drive. In question of the road on West Central Avenue, they say it's insufficient because the hotel was put up and not efficient for the hotel. Well, why was the hotel put up for? Why not stop the hotel from being built and let them take care of that? And I understand they're building 2 other buildings along that same route there. Now, why don't you get something from them and let them take care of it? Why should the people in here do it?
That's
all I'm asking.
That's exactly what we're doing.
Impact fee, that's what impact fee is.
No. You're saying we got to we want money up front. Don't even ask for that. Let them take care of it themselves. That's what I'm saying.
Well, they will, sir. This is what this is all about.
What I hear money-wise, unless it's a lot of money, and you're going to change a lot of percentage of that road there, it's going to take you a long time for you to do it. And in the city, the way they work, they're horrible. I've seen them work. So why don't we try and get the contractors to do it and say, okay, guys, you take care of it, and that's it. End of story. Boom, boom.
Mayor, I don't know if I can answer it. It seems
No,
my
Rocky, we're going to move on.
explanation
We're going to move on. Okay, we don't need no answers.
I'd like to make a motion.
All right,
Councilmember, I just have one
we're
comment.
we're on item 4. Is there any further discussion? Otherwise, we're going to move a motion.
One comment before the motion, please, is, it was a question that was asked, is what holds, if someone pulls a permit and the project dies, how will that investor get paid back? Do we have
It
language
will,
in here?
it's going to be worked out. That is to be worked out. And I can tell you how it's going to be real quick. Funds will be kicked back to the city that's been expended. The rest will go back to the developer. That's what's going to come out of it. But we're going to move on.
So we don't want to put
We're
that-
getting,
Okay, I understand, but this is a question. We don't want to put that language in this agreement?
that will be put in here upon the time when it needs to be put in.
So I would like to make a motion to add that language into this agreement and to also add in language that says 50% of the impact fees will be due at the issuance of the permit and the remaining 50% will be due at CO.
Anthony,
Yes, sir.
we're asking for language to be put in, and we don't know what the language is.
Yeah, I'm not clear. I'm clear on the 50/50. I mean, my understanding of the discussion is 50% would be paid upon issuance of building permit, 50% paid on certificate of occupancy. What I'm not clear on is the commencement of the discussion regarding a refund.
Going to be, from my understanding, I've already had a previous conversation with David. The understanding will be is basically, like I said, but there's a lot to that language that has to be put into the thing. I mean, you just can't say, well, we're going to give you back whatever, and then whatever. There's going to be language that has to be put in.
I mean, the city may have some administrative policy it may want to consider regarding refunding. I don't think that's in the ordinance today.
It's not.
No.
Regarding refunds, each situation is different. I mean, there are some developers, well, maybe their building permits expire, but they kind of like the fact that they've already paid impact fees because, you know, it results in a credit, you know, for the future development of the property anyway. It's in some respects becomes an entitlement. So, I mean, it's not, I don't think it's as straightforward of an issue that, you know, if a developer pulls a permit and then the permits expire and they abandon the project even temporarily for a period of time, how the money would be refunded is probably a little bit more complicated issue than just saying we'll refund it. Because in some cases, when it's paid in advance, I think it was mentioned, the city starts spending that money in preparation for dealing with the growth generated by the proposed project. So the city may not be in a position of refunding all of the impact fees, depending on how finance accounts for all of that money on pending capital projects with the city. So,
But Mike, I understand this is the discussion I've had. That's what I was concerned about, that part of this.
yeah, I frankly, I mean, I understand the issue, and it's a legitimate issue for discussion. I couldn't insert or just craft language off the cuff to address that tonight. In this particular ordinance, the 50-50 split, if that's what the council desires, that's something that can be done on the fly, but not I could not honestly cover all the issues that would need to be covered on refunding impact fees tonight. That was not the direction when I prepared this ordinance, to put that into the code.
Well,
I think the city manager last time said that it would come back, it would be figured out, as you've said, Mayor Hogan, that the council would ultimately approve. Could we put language in there, Anthony, that says, it would essentially buy us time and give me comfort, that would say, in the event the permit expires, all refunds shall be approved by the city council at a certain amount of money. I'm not saying, petty amounts or small amounts of money. And then that'll give you time maybe to look at other ordinances and think about this and bring it back and fine tune it if needed.
Those are administrative things. I think that we already had this approved in the first reading.
Yeah, but this is a lot of money.
We also talked about this when we had our retreat. We had a long discussion about impact fees and the reason why we wanted to collect them up front rather than at the occupancy, because this way it would give the city an opportunity to fix the road, to have the sewer system up to par. And we talked about this. This was discussed. You were there.
I know we discussed it. It was David Green discussing what he wanted.
No, we all had an opportunity to discuss it.
But in that opportunity, no one said that, from my recollection, that we necessarily agreed on it. We hadn't had any policy to review or consider it. At that phase in the conversation, it was merely a concept. It was an idea. Now that we have the idea, we're down to the final stretch. I think that we've come to a very good agreement with the 50-50 split. That's very fair. First 50 probably goes towards engineering. The remaining 50 goes towards construction. I think that lines up very nice. And the next event is when you're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars that a developer is going to pay out front to say that this is an administrative decision. I don't think that's.
We already
I don't
talked
think that's out of the
about
question. We haven't talked about that.
Sure we did. And no one disagreed when we had our retreat. We had an open discussion. It was open to the public. And this was discussed about impact fees, that we thought that it would be a good idea. We all agreed upon that. No one agreed on a 50-50 split. This ordinance was written the way that it was written. You can't change the way an ordinance is already written.
Mr. Chair, if I could just speak maybe an idea on this. If indeed we take half the money that it costs to put in the wastewater treatment line to this imaginative investment, and take the other half of the money, the half from the investor, take the other half out of our city funds to finish it, the money's invested, it's gone. If the developer goes insolvent or goes bankrupt or he underjudged something, we can't dig up the sewer and sell it back to nobody.
No,
The road's there. And
understandable.
we've
Anthony.
invested money. That's the problem. We're spending our money to do something for the investor when it's really his responsibility to meet that.
No
Let
disagreement.
me ask the question to Parliament. Anthony, this ordinance is been through a first reading, and I don't recall that question coming up on the last reading. Is there some way to pass this ordinance intact the way it is tonight with an addendum that there will be bought back a section to be implemented into this ordinance at a later date upon the council's discretion of how that payment or refund will be handled? There-
The council can certainly act on this ordinance tonight and give direction to initiate additional legislation and another ordinance to address any other issues you want to address relative to the payment of impact fees. We can always bring back another ordinance to address whatever you all want to do. For example, regarding a refund policy, if that's the direction of the council, we can do that. We can take it in steps. Like I told you and advised you, I don't think we're going to resolve the refund issue if that's what the council's desire is to consider tonight. It's more complicated than just saying we're going to refund if a project temporarily ceases or permanently ceases. We'd have to do some staff work on that and give you another proposal.
Would that be a complete new ordinance or just an addendum to this ordinance?
No, it'd be a new ordinance.
Be a complete new ordinance?
Yeah, we'd go through another ordinance process. I mean, no big deal if that's the direction of the council.
There's no way just to take this ordinance and put an amendment to it or another section onto it later?
The only way to do that
Has
is
be
to
all
defer action on this ordinance until such time as we revise it and bring it back. That just delays this ordinance to deal with the refund issue. Might be more efficient just to bring back something at a later date regarding the refund issue, if that's what the council wants to consider.
Yeah, and Mr. Mayor, we've got a couple of, we've got a hotel project right on our doorstep, and I'd love to have this policy in place.
That's why I was questioning what I was questioning. I understand where we're going. I know, I want to please Mr. Morrison. He's got a valid point. I raised the point, I've already raised that point 3 weeks ago or so with Mr. Green. And I was told that, and I feel like, Wes, if you feel comfortable with passing this tonight, the council, we can direct to have staff come back with a ordinance that will implement that, but this is important that we do get this because there's some pending stuff, and the people that are pending have agreed to this ordinance, no problem, to the impact fees, of paying them ahead of time, there's no problem. But this is something that we're working on against the clock, you might say, to get the funds that we do need. And I think if you would be happy with this ordinance and then come back at a later date, I will support coming back and adding that I would like to see it added as an amendment to keep rewriting another ordinance, but we'll do another ordinance because time is of the essence that this takes place. There's a lot of money standing.
Yep. My motion on the table was to do the 50-50 split, which I think Anthony was clear on. Well, that motion, it will die now, not having a second.
No, we haven't called the motion for a second yet, but
No, he didn't have a second.
we haven't had a second to it, but we're trying to get you through the mire that you're in, and I'm understanding that mire because I've already been there and discussed it all. So I was happy with doing the way we're going to do, but if you feel like you want to put another motion out there to bring up another part of a new ordinance to add to that ordinance, and I'll support it. I'll support it.
And are you okay with keeping the 50-50?
I'll support that too if that's what the council desires.
Okay. Well, so I'm going to go ahead with a motion here to add in language for a 50-50, 50% due at issuance of permits, the remaining 50 due at CO.
Can I interrupt you a second? We're not adding language.
Okay.
We're gonna pass this motion, we're gonna pass this ordinance, and then you can come back with your motion to your 50-50 and a new ordinance to implement the refund of impact fees that are unused.
Well, I think the
That's what
issue
we
was
need.
the refund policy. I think he was crystal clear on the 50-50, and I just wanted to put a
but-
motion on that and leave the refund off for another day. I'm
Well,
fine
it's
with that.
creating Anthony to do some work to an ordinance that we're gonna throw away.
Is that a substantial
next
change,
month.
Anthony? The 50-50? I mean, could we pass that tonight with that provision added in and keep
Yes.
things moving?
If that's the council's desire, that's a change that can be made at second.
His
reading.
time is
I've got-
money.
yeah.
His
Well,
time is money.
I've got
And if we
I've got a
just-
question for,
Go Don't wanna
David
take the
Dickey,
money away from you.
how much does this 50/50 affect the project currently going on with the city and the hotels? I mean, how much is this going to slow down, delay what we've already put in progress? Or what we're in?
It won't slow down or delay the permitting and the city's approval of the project. It's just a matter of what funds we're going to collect on the front end versus on the back end of the project, which a project of this scale is 1.5 years. So we're going to be,
I know the city's spending a lot of money on the roadways.
Yeah.
Thurn and going all the way around Central.
yeah, the impact fees on a hotel project, let's just say are roughly $75,000.
I was
That's
under
it?
the impression the impact, the 50/50 was residential.
City impact fees.
Are we talking about total impact fees?
I was under the
I
impression
was
it
thinking
was like
residential is where we were going with the 50/50. Because the commercial guys don't have any problem paying their impact fees. I don't have any problem giving a 50/50 on residential, but doing it on the commercial, I will have a little problem with that because I think it's a little different. We're talking about different purses, let's put it that way.
If I could interject, Mayor, when we get to item number 7, we're talking about the West Central Boulevard, Thurn Boulevard, and it's a $2.87 million project.
Right. I said my piece, and I know what we got
Okay.
looking at forward, future, and I will
this isn't,
support a new ordinance with the impact fee reduction back, or reducing fees back to the people that doesn't pull the permit or complete their permit. I will support personally a 50/50 on residential only, not on commercial.
Okay, thank you for.
That's what was presented,
And-
the original was the residential.
Just to bring a new ordinance back, in my opinion, is if we're gonna argue attorney fees here, to have 2 more readings for a whole new ordinance is a lot more expensive than adding it in today. He's ready to go.
We're
He
gonna
can
have to
get
throw
it.
this
So I
ordinance,
don't,
we're gonna put this ordinance to bed.
We-
It has no use anymore.
I'm
after
just
the next
saying,
reading.
he've already said we can put it to bed with the 50/50 split, whether we want to do residential or commercial. I think that it would be fair to do it across the board. And I don't think it would set us back substantially. I think, John, you want to say something?
I'd like to say something. Councilman Randalls brings up an extremely good point. We have to be careful here. Because when we're talking 2.8 million or the 1.4 we think we're going to get, if we defer these impact fees, Councilman Randalls says we may need to use the general fund. Council needs to remember, if we use the general fund, this money comes out of the money we have in our investment account, could come out of unobligated reserves. Those unobligated reserves, if they were to deplete $1 million, that would put us under what the city policy is of keeping at least 20%. That's the city's policy of keeping 20% for unobligated reserves in the event, God forbid, something bad happens. If we do that and something was to run amok, we are going to be below our unobligated reserves, and the city. It's going to make the city very vulnerable. I think it makes the citizens very, very vulnerable. There's a big risk here. So remember, when you want to give somebody a break on this end, and the city's going to suck it up, we need to be careful if we're using our investment money, because it's going to come back to bite us. We got to be very careful. So I agree with, I'm hearing the discussion here with the mayor saying, let this be a new ordinance, because I think Wes is trying to be fair here with the 50/50. But the way the ordinance is written now for the second reading, if you want to put the city at the lowest risk and not violate our own policy, you need to approve this ordinance. I just wanted to make that clear. That's council's decision. But as the finance director, I see the numbers. We can't afford to just bypass 1.4 million. It will put us under our own city policy to protect these citizens. So these impact fees are important.
To piggyback off on the rest, as the finance director, being the community services director, I see the impact on the streets, I see the impact on our sewer, lift stations, all of that day one of these projects. So to your point, putting money out there to invest in improving the system could hurt us financially.
It will completely it will completely deplete the unrestricted money we have even for wastewater and stormwater, and we cannot do that because we need that money for the daily business about these lift stations breaking down and everything else. Got to be very careful here, Council. I just wanted to make that point. That's all I have.
Thank you, John, because that's
With
exactly the way it is.
With that being said, I think I brought up the percentages initially, and I'd like to go ahead and ordinance 10-2019 accept as written.
And I'd like to second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to pass ordinance 10-2019 as written.
Is it possible to have a discussion after we got the motion in the second?
Yep.
Okay, then I'd like to say that I think we're discussing a problem that we don't have. The three investors have already publicly last meeting come in and says we're aware of the problem.
Rocky, we're not discussing it no more. We got a motion to pass the ordinance as
Well,
written.
can I say I'd like them to encourage speak for the motion?
To do what?
Can I speak for the motion?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I'm speaking for it.
But we're just as soon call it and get it on, so we got a lot to go yet.
Yeah.
We're all in favor of it, so.
Okay, if I can just encourage us as a council to say that we are addressing a problem that we don't have because the investors has already told us they will pay the impact fees to build the road, so it'll be to their hotel.
Okay.
So we need to take advantage of this.
All right. Call the roll, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Brown.
Four.
Mayor Hoag.
Four.
Councilmember Morrison.
Against.
Councilmember Randalls.
For the motion.
Councilmember Raymond.
For.
Now, Mr. Morrison, as I said, you have the option right now to bring a new ordinance to this dais. I will support it, as what you have said.
Mm-hmm.
But the 50-50 part of it, I would only support on a residential basis because of the criteria that is involved in a commercial versus a residential. The residential basically has no infrastructure that the city's lacking on at the moment. But commercial, yes, it's a different story. So you have the option right now. I will open the floor to you to do what you have wanted to impose to, as far as the refund of the fees. I have that same problem with the ordinance the way it was, but I was given an answer that I was satisfied with. But if you feel uncomfortable, like you say you've been uncomfortable with this, I'm giving you the option right now to make yourself comfortable.
Sure. So just a consensus vote, I guess, to direct staff to look into a refund policy that we can bring back on a future date. I think once we put this into practice, there'll be additional things that we can do to improve this. So maybe we just call a broad policy revision after we get these hotels under our belt and we put it into practice. We can look at the whole policy all together and see if there's any improvements. We've spoken today about considering a refund. So
Okay. Thank you. Council, let's start that on the end. Ms. Raymond, do you have a say on, what do you?
I have no comment on that at this point. Thank you.
I'm just trying to get consensus as to implementing a refund policy into our ordinance, which is not there, and I think it should be there personally. I had that point already, but Rocky?
Yes.
Do you agree that we should have a refund policy written in our ordinance?
No, I don't see how, if we've got a hotel or a building structure condominium half finished, it's gone bankrupt, I don't see us going to the residents, say, we're going to assess everybody $1,000 so we can give the money back to that developer that went broke. No, it ain't going to happen.
No, I would only support something, I'm talking prior to like when the development, the CO, before CO, way before CO, you're going to be collecting your impact fees upon permitting, on commercial only, residential 50-50. But on the commercial, if a developer comes in and eats up a lot of time and then wants to file permits and he files his permit and then he walks away, there's a problem there.
The problem is he overextended himself.
Now, if the city's already started the engineering and the roads and all, yeah, we are due that money. And I think at most of the period of time, it probably would not be any money refunded, basically, on a commercial entity like that because of attorneys. It's something that we can explore. I would think we should explore it, maybe not. I don't know. It's up to you guys.
I'm not in favor of that. It's like the water, when I break my water hose and it uses the water, the city of Cocoa said, you got it, you paid for it, I don't care what you done with it.
Well, I would agree with you in the
do it.
example you shared, Rocky, and that's just one kind. But there are other examples, as the mayor's trying to say. Under your example, that provision should, I wouldn't support that either. If we've built it, and that's what we're saying, is just nothing specific here. Your example is, heard and agreed on from my behalf, but to say there are situations where a refund should be given back, this ordinance does not address that, and it's just a matter of bringing it back.
Okay.
So.
Mr. Brown, how do you feel, just in a nutshell,
I
yes or
agree.
no?
Well, I agree. If a builder has put $100,000 or $75,000 into the project or the roadway or something like that, and they have $25,000 that they haven't utilized, and the city has no liens or what can I say, any reason to take that $25,000, that there should be some kind of means that person can recoup
Okay, then
money
that's-
that hasn't been
I feel,
actually.
okay. I feel the city should at least explore
Right.
and bring to us something. They may come up with a lot of stuff that we don't even know about. They may come up with stuff to say, hey, and here's why we shouldn't do it, and then we can talk about that as an ordinance if we want to draft that ordinance. That would be the way I want to. I don't want to sit here and direct council or staff to implement a ordinance. I just want to see if there's any avenues that we should explore, and if there isn't, then fine, it's a dead issue.
Mr. Mayor, I will yield to your desire and listen and discuss it with kind of an
Oh, it's,
open
let's have
mind.
staff look at it, and if it's something that can't work, it don't work.
Okay.
I agree.
I'd be fair about it all the way around. And as far as the 50%, if you want to stick with that, we'll do that. Let them come back to us with something. It's only fair. That answers your problem, gets our ordinance passed for the night, and we're ready to go, so.
Okay.
Okay, we're going to move on to, what are we on, item? 5. On item 5, ordinance 11, 2019, code enforcement procedures, second reading. Item number 6, or 5, I'm sorry.
Okay,
We have,
ordinance 11-2019, ordinance of the City Council of the City of Cape Canaveral, Brevard County, Florida, regarding code enforcement procedures, providing for a special magistrate code enforcement process, updating the procedures related to the Criminal Nuisance Abatement Board authorized by Section 893.138 Florida statutes, adopting conforming amendments, providing for the repeal of prior inconsistent ordinances and resolutions, incorporation into the code severability and an effective date. This is second and final reading of this ordinance, also a public hearing item. I just need to I want to emphasize a couple of points. I know we discussed this ad infinitum at the last meeting, but I want to emphasize just a couple of points. First and foremost, this ordinance updates the city's code enforcement code. It addresses more than just special magistrate. It really does update other provisions of the code and kind of streamlines a few provisions and augments a few provisions based on some statutory changes and some case law. So there are other provisions in this ordinance that, in my opinion, require adoption by the council regardless of the special magistrate. With respect to the special magistrate, I want to emphasize that the way the ordinance is structured, it sets up the special magistrate code enforcement process as an alternative process. That special magistrate process will only commence at such time the city council appoints a special magistrate. If the council appoints a special magistrate in the future, then the way the ordinance is drafted, then the code enforcement board will be abolished, and then the special magistrate would take on code enforcement proceedings on behalf of the city. The ordinance also allows, if the city council were to appoint a special magistrate, it allows the city council to someday go back to a code enforcement board process if the council desires to terminate a special magistrate and go back to the code board process. at which point then the council would just reappoint a new code enforcement board. So the ordinance creates this text. Whether or not a special magistrate gets enabled depends on whether the city council moves forward with an appointment, and then provides the flexibility to go back and then go back again. So the council wouldn't have to adopt a new ordinance. It would just give policy direction by appointing code board members or special magistrates. So I just wanted to emphasize that. So I made a couple of technical changes to this provision to codify what I just said. That language was in the both the codification portion of the ordinance and in the uncodified section of the ordinance. So I just cleaned it up so it's all going to be codified. And if the council were to adopt this ordinance, the ordinance becomes effective immediately. The special magistrate process would only become effective if and when the city council appoints a special magistrate in the future. Mayor.
Thank you. Hey, council, it's open to us.
Okay, so that was very good, Anthony. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, if you don't mind, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. It's open.
It sounds like, because the way I understood it last time was humorously said, with 2 readings, we could bring the code enforcement back. Well, under that saying, you can create any law with 2 readings. So I figured this puts the text in there that with a point, we don't got to go back through that process.
Correct.
And that's one of the technical changes. Okay, thank you. What do we have, and when we say a point, right now I believe I saw we're currently under the process of seeking a magistrate. Is that true? Or maybe at least in the planning, is that underway in any shape?
There's a draft advertisement that would be published soliciting a special magistrate meeting the qualifications. That's been prepared only because the council, as you know, adopted the International Property Maintenance Code revisions, and that ordinance requires a special magistrate to be appointed. So that notice to advertise for special magistrates has been temporarily delayed pending the outcome of this ordinance, because if the council were to adopt this ordinance, the advertisement's going to change a little bit. Actually, the scope of the special magistrate would be broadened beyond International Property Maintenance Code and to incorporate this as a possibility. So we were just delaying that publication of the ad.
Got it. Thank you very much.
So one way or another, the ad's going out. It's either going out for a special magistrate for International Property Maintenance Code by its solely, right? Or we're going to have a more encompassing ad that would include dealing with this ordinance if the council decides to move forward.
Thank you. And as far as proximity, do we have any, I didn't see anything on where they need to live in relationship to the city of Cape Canaveral? Is there anything in there that specified that?
Why would you want that in there?
Yeah, I think.
It's kind of narrowed down to almost nothing.
Well, I mean, we have, I think, a 20-mile radius for the city manager. I could be off a little bit there. I think it's about right. And the same reasons we would have that in there. You know, they're making substantial decisions within our city, and it was asked to me by a citizen. It was pointed out in an email. I think we all got the email, and just wanted to address that today and see if that was put in.
Well, I don't think you'll find too many qualified people within the city limits of Cape Canaveral. That, not knocking anybody's qualifications, but a special magistrate is not something that's just a dime a dozen.
Sure. Thank you. And I guess the last one is from a budgetary standpoint. Do we have any idea on how much this magistrate's going to cost?
It'll be negotiable based on contract with the council. So my guess is it's you know, it'll probably be a minimum. It'll probably be a minimum to attend a hearing, having seen many of these contracts, and then an hourly rate.
Okay, so it won't be retainer. It'll be on a
Mostly
minimum
a
meeting?
minimum, yeah, to actually, you know, mobilize and actually conduct a hearing. There's usually a minimum number, number of hours you get paid for that, and then, but it's hourly It's an hourly rate.
And that'll come up when we appoint, we'll approve that contract and
Okay.
review that. I noticed Cocoa Beach has a magistrate, and it was brought to my attention that they had, for the past 2 years, only 4 meetings. I haven't done, that seemed to be a low amount. Do you happen to know why? Does that seem about normal? I didn't understand why so few.
It all depends on how effective, the city can get violators in compliance and call them for the necessity of a hearing. So the more people become into compliance, it sometimes makes, having, canceling the special magistrate or code board hearing necessary because there's no business to be heard.
And the final comment is, I'm not going to speak at length. I made myself, you weren't here, but you probably heard I was against this, and I'm still against it. I have a hard time supporting it. I believe that the people, and I'm open to change my mind and listen more, but we passed it for the code. But for this section, I think that the public, should be given reasonable opportunity to be heard by a board. I think there's a lot of value in that. And I'm not subscribing that the board is slow and biased. I think that our board has done a good job, but I rest there. And for those reasons, I think we should keep that. However, it certainly gives me a lot more comfort from what you described earlier, Anthony, in those technical changes to quickly move back to the Code Enforcement Board. So thank you for explaining that.
Anybody else? Rocky?
Yeah, I would like to make a portion, maybe perhaps to answer that. On page 2 of 3 of our handout here that we're working on, third paragraph from the bottom, and this would be probably to Anthony, maybe Wes, if you can understand it. Please note, once the city implements a special magistrate system, a separate criminal nuisance abatement board would need to be established by the council. If there are any cases, as Florida law requires a local board to handle those cases, and does not expressly authorize a special magistrate. And that's why Cocoa Beach has, you only take the ones to there that lingered on for year after year after year that you get the magistrate. If it's somebody because the grass is 7 inches instead of 6 inches, that's not who we're gonna bring in to handle, if I understand. That's where this separate criminal nuisance abatement board, I'm not real familiar what that is.
Yeah, that's, that board's not going to address weeds. That board is a special statutory board that has special authority and powers under Florida law to deal with properties that meet certain thresholds for acts, criminal acts such as prostitution, drugs, gang-related activities, and the like. So it's a very specialized board. This city adopted the enabling provisions to prosecute those types of cases if and when the sheriff wants to prosecute those cases before that board. I don't believe we've had any cases since that enabling statute has been put on the city code books. But I just drew to the council's attention that because it's required to be a board, the code enforcement board of the city currently serves as the criminal nuisance board when and if there's a case to be prosecuted. So if the council were to move forward with a special magistrate process and abolish the code enforcement board, the council is going to have to appoint a board to serve as the criminal nuisance board if and when a case is going to be prosecuted. Did I answer your question?
But I think, and then bearing in mind that sometimes in Cocoa Beach's instance, their cases have reduced in number simply because people says, wow, you'll find me. I'll fix that broken window. So there's a reason that they have very few cases. Because people get cited by a code enforcement officer and says, you're wrong, here's the statute and you need to do something. They do it. That's what we're hoping.
You just want compliance, you don't want the money. That's all it's about. fix it. Okay, any questions? We go to public hearing. We do have a card for number 5 is Pat Campbell.
So the only thing I had to say about this ordinance is about disbanding the Code Enforcement Board. I don't believe that's a good idea. I believe the Code Enforcement Board has served you well. I believe their hearts are in for our community. I believe everything they do is directed to make our community better. Replacing a Code Enforcement Board made up of citizens that live here with a lawyer from somewhere else doesn't make any sense to me. And I'd like to read something from the Florida League of Cities that I believe you value. Local governments exist not only to provide basic services, but to reflect the values of the community residents into how a community looks and feels. Preserving local decision-making power to exert that influence helps to ensure that our cities are places we can call home. I'm not the only one that's opposed to eliminating the Code Enforcement Board. You have emails from a number of residents who are asking for the same thing. The local special magistrate isn't going to improve processes, isn't going to speed anything up, isn't going to change the rules, isn't going to create any new laws. I'm asking you to leave the Code Enforcement Board in place, listen to the citizens, and leave people that have their hearts in this community, and leave the citizens having some say on how we treat each other. Thank you.
Hey, Council, back to us.
I'll reply and say I fully agree with what Mr. Campbell said in respect to the Code Enforcement Board. I think that their heart is in it, and I hope that I hope I'm wrong. Maybe that this does work out. I know it's not going to be that way, but when I attended the last Code Enforcement Board meeting, I know they'd been serving a long time, and the time will tell. Sounds like it's going to go that way, but time will tell. So thank you.
I don't have too much input other than I know there's been several cases and Mr. Campbell's been involved in one for many years that should have never been no more than 2 years. Went on for 15 years or whatever. There's other cases. We got the purple monster sitting on the corner of Polk and Magnolia. That's been going on for years and years. That's been going on. And it's not due to the fact that it's only the board. The board, I've been watching, in fact, I was on the very original Code Enforcement Board when we started it. And I've watched that board. The board has many good cases come before them that should have been the only night it was there. And it went on for years. Polk Avenue for years. We have other ones in the city that are still going on for years. And a magistrate, I've been before a magistrate in the county, and it isn't something to behold and say, gee whiz, I had fun there. I wrote the check before I even went in the door. I didn't want to get in. But the check I wrote was not, really, it wasn't, it was a long extenuating thing. I could have got a lawyer, probably beat it, but I wasn't going to get into all that. But the thing about a Code Enforcement Board is, yeah, we got the citizens here. But they, oh my gosh, I really feel sorry for Johnny because he had a tough time. But Johnny's been playing this tune for 2 years. And it's costing this city money. A magistrate, you're going to go before that guy. He don't know you. He don't care who you are. He doesn't know anything about your background, you, the case, or anything. All he sees is the law and what you have done to violate that law, and he gives you an option. Boom, over with, said and done. Now, if you don't want to cooperate and comply and make conformity, then go on and go into court. And you're going to spin your wheels, because I support a magistrate. I've been wanting a magistrate for many years here, and I've talked about it, and I know Cocoa Beach has got it. It works great down there, and there's other cities that have it, and there is no problem with it. But a Code Enforcement Board, you got the citizens here that, they can turn on a soft tune and a soft heart for that night, and, you're still fighting the problem you've had 10 years, 12 years, whatever it is. I'm going to support this, and I don't have anything else to say.
I also support it. I feel that a magistrate will be much more effective, especially when we're talking about people that own large properties in the city, that perhaps they haven't kept up those properties. And I think that this is one way to regulate it, and they can follow the code. The code is there. And I think that it will create more of a respectful atmosphere, and especially for our code enforcement officers. I pray for them every day because I think they have a tough job to do in the city. Thank you.
Ms. Randalls? Comments? Just see Mr. Brown, then we'll
The
go.
only thing I want to say is when you're putting neighbor against neighbor, I know of a situation that I'm not going to give names, but involving a minor violation of a person on the city council. And instead of accepting that violation, they wanted to know all the neighbors who had called in. See, this is the kind of issue we're dealing with when we're putting neighbor against neighbor. We can address this, and I think we can expedite some of these things by getting this magistrate. Thank you.
Okay. We don't have any more comments? We'll call for a motion.
Reynolds would move to approve or adopt ordinance number 11-2019. I don't have a mic. And I'm sorry, I thought the little button was on. I'll move to adopt ordinance number 11-2019 at the second reading.
And I second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to adopt ordinance 11-2019 at the second reading. Would you call the roll, please?
Mayor Pro Tem Brown?
For.
Mayor Hoag?
For.
Councilmember Morrison?
Against.
Councilmember Randalls?
For the motion.
Councilmember Raymond?
Or,
Okay, ordinance. We'll see, we're going to go to item number 7, is it? Or 6, I'm sorry, I got it turned early. We're going to do ordinance number 12, 2019, first reading, providing for a referendum election ballot language. Mr. Parliament.
Ordinance number 12-2019, ordinance of the City Council of the City of Cape Canaveral, Brevard County, Florida, providing for a referendum election and ballot language for an election to be scheduled by the City Council, providing for an economic development ad valorem tax exemption pursuant to Section 196.1995 Florida statutes, providing for coordination with Supervisor of Elections, providing for severability and an effective date. This is first reading of this ordinance. This ordinance proposes the referendum question regarding ad valorem tax abatement for economic development purposes. As you are aware, the City Council currently has that authority, which has been authorized by the voters on 2 separate occasions in Cape Canaveral. That authorization is due to expire. To continue that authorization, the council would need to get approval by the voters of Cape Canaveral for a third time to continue using that special power, taxing power, if necessary. The referendum question is provided in the ordinance. The referendum question cannot be changed. The referendum question is exactly the way it is required by state law. I'd be happy to answer any specific questions you may have regarding this ordinance.
Council, it's up to us. I don't have a problem with it because I think when we did implement this, it brought a lot of new businesses. Mainly the new hotel was one of them that popped right in right away, and there was other things that people take advantage of this. And yeah, you feel like you're giving them away your taxes, but really in all, it's a proven fact that it comes back tenfold. So,
Correct me if I'm wrong, but have we used this for hotels, or I don't think we've used this at all.
tax abatements. Oh, yes, we've used it.
No, when I read the agenda summary, there's only been one incident where it's actually holding up. There's an active contract with CHS, and I don't even think they've realized the revenues yet. They certainly qualify, but a few others had backed out. But to make the claim that this has worked, I don't know where the data supports that, because those hotels were not given any tax abatements under this the way I
I'm
understand
not
it.
only speaking of City of Cape Canaveral, I'm speaking countywide. This is an issue that's, you look at the back of the thing here, all the cities that are involved in it, it's quite a thing. And I've watched a lot of the counties, and not only in this city, we have Mr. Bogger. We gave him a big abatement to Mr. Bogger for his buildings, and I don't have a problem with it. I think it's something that works for the county-wide, not only here, everywhere.
I would speak for it in the fact that the results that we had, excuse me, I just clarify that the ad valorem taxes levied by the city of Cape Canaveral is all that we are talking about. But that is a stepping stone, because if the city initiates this opportunity, they will forego, and it's based on hiring so many employees and on and on. You don't get it right away. In fact, the company that we have, CHS, that hasn't yet been eligible for it. They had to increase 250 employees. But my point was, by the city doing it, then Brevard County additionally offers the same opportunity, which was extended by the county there. And then the companies frequently apply for it, and then that opens them up to the state of Florida's Qualified Target Industry Economic Incentive Program. We're just talking about 10% of their property taxes that we would be lenient with. It's an attractive tool. Economic development has used it very successfully in the county, and it tipped the scales, because not only did we offer 10% of our property tax, the county did, and then it went on up to the state level, and under the Qualified Target Industry Economic Incentive. I don't know if that program is still available or not at that level, but it worked, and we got CHS. That was a company that was inside the Beltway in Washington, D.C. It started here with 5 employees, and now they're about 415, if I'm someplace in that neighborhood. They closed their office inside the Beltway in Tyson's Corner, which is Reston, Virginia, and moved down here for the benefit of the lower taxes and opportunity of a new building. It's helped the community immensely. I think it's worthwhile. It is only an offer if they reach certain plateaus of success, and it's a measurement of revenue that they're bringing in. Usually the employees are making relatively high income brackets. I find it, we offered it, and Wes is right, we offered it to many people. It didn't tip the scales in some cases because other counties were offering more. Comprehensive Health is ours. We got a $4 million building renovation at 8600 Astronaut. We had one Project Rocket, LEC. We offered it to them. They didn't do it. Stark Armor was another company that was interested. No action was taken on them. So we only have one real success story, but it brought Comprehensive Health, a worldwide company, to our doorstep here on Astronaut. I speak for it. The small amount that we will be giving up, 10% of their taxes, is relatively low of the property taxes.
Got a few comments. Do we happen to know roughly what the estimated tax break will be for CHS when the post? Just a ballpark's fine. I'm just,
Well,
for the city.
no, they've met that, they now are eligible. I do know that. They've gone through and they've added the 250 employees that was part of the criteria. And let me see, if you didn't find it in your notes, it's probably not in mine here. The company had brought down 2 divisions of their group with 250 employees, and they were located at 8800 Astronaut. Bob Bogger took the old vacant building that was sitting there that Lockheed had, and last it was used by USA, United Space Alliance, and it was vacant, and he added on a huge building, doubled the size from 60,000 to 120,000 square feet, and they decided to relocate. So that's a success story that we can use. But as for the amount, I don't have the tax.
John, do we have a number, do you know?
I believe I could get that amount for you. As a matter of fact, I think Mr. Morley, who's not here tonight, actually has that amount. And I've actually seen that amount, but that I'm not gonna say what the amount is because it's not coming to me.
Yeah.
But, Mr. Morley has that amount, and I think we can do that by the end of the week on Friday.
Okay.
Thank you. And here's the way I see it. It's, CHS was already here, and I know that I think, consolidated some of their out-of-state offices here to build that new development. And I think that Florida offers sunshine and nice weather. So if you're talking about out-of-state competition, I think people come here for those things. And I understand the competitive environment and the logic behind this as a quote-unquote tool. But the data has shown from what I've seen that it really hasn't worked very well for us. Now, maybe other parts in the county. But what has worked is we have seen growth in our county, or in our city. You have seen hotels come here, and we've seen vacant buildings become occupied, and they're all moving here without tax breaks. Now, the reason I think is the second part is when we're competing. So from a state perspective, when we're competing with Georgia or Alabama, we offer our northern states. New England, we offer warm weather, and I think that the sunshine helps. But within the state of Florida, when we compete against inland communities, Orlando can't build a beach, and so Cape Canaveral offers gorgeous beaches, and I think that those are the main drivers. In addition to two big ones, crime, safety, and streets and sidewalks. And I think if we get that right, people are going to come here for the natural resources that we offer. And the data has proven that to be true. The reason hotels are coming here is because we offer, it's gorgeous here. We all call this place home not because of tax breaks. Now, I've studied this issue quite a bit, and I can tell you that and I've been consistent with this since day one of the first heated issues, spirited conversations we ever had was if you do something for us, we need to do it for everyone. And I believe in fairness. And if we're going to give a tax cut, I'm for a tax cut across the board. And if we can't afford to do that, then we don't do it. And we stand our ground and we say Cape Canaveral doesn't need a tax break for you to move here. That we have enough going on to call this place something we're all proud of. We all moved here without that tax break. And so sunshine, nice weather, safe streets, beautiful sidewalks, very little data to show that it is working. And so this, the way I see it, is a form of, call it what you want, it's a form of corporate welfare. It picks a winner. It picks one particular organization over another. I don't care how you look at it. You're saying, you give me jobs, we'll give you tax breaks. And I don't think that that's, from a philosophy standpoint, our job. Our job is to make sure that this community is safe. And then after that, I think that the economy will go and jobs will be created as long as those things are there. So I have a very hard time supporting this unless we'd be willing to do it for everybody. Because if a Wawa gas station gets a perk, what about the little mom and pop gas station? Why didn't they? If a Walmart redistribution center gets relocated here in Cocoa, I don't know if you've driven by that, what does that do to the small Cape Canaveral meat market? And for those reasons, I'm not a big fan of economic development incentives like this. I don't like a lot of the state packages that were forced, and that, Rocky, thank you for explaining the different layers. Everyone's involved in this. It's something that I don't want to get on board with. CHS was here. It really hasn't attracted anyone else. And even if it did work,
we're going to close.
I have a hard time agreeing with it. So thank you.
Okay, we're gonna call the question on this for a motion, or we go to public participation first, because I do have somebody that needs a potty break. So we'll get this wrapped up before we go on a break. Does anybody in public care to speak on this? Nobody's got his card submitted, but I will offer you an opportunity. Hearing none, council, I would like a motion to pass ordinance or deny the ordinance, either way. or move the motion.
Mayor, if you would permit me, since I spoke for it, I would move to approve ordinance number 12-2019 at the first reading. And this is the first reading, and we'll have another in a month after it gets publicly posted. But I would speak
have a
for
second?
approval of this ordinance.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Motion is made by Mr. Randall, second by Mrs. Raymond. Call the roll, please.
4.
Mayor Hogue,
For.
Councilmember Morrison,
Against.
Councilmember Randalls,
For the motion on the first reading.
Councilmember Raymond.
4.
Okay, we have a request for a potty break, I guess. So we'll take a few-minute break and proceed on. Being back to order, we'll proceed on with item number 7. This is a review, approve of our council priorities for the year of 2019. You have before you the full 5-year plan we got laid out for the city council and all the goings-on that we have going on. The money's been appropriated to each one on your first call-out sheet. A lot of it's underway, some of it's been done, and we're moving. I think the 5-year plan, we've been through several of them in my periods of time here, and we've always kind of succeeded most of the time on all of them. So a couple times we had a couple that carried over, or we didn't get really started on time and carried over to the next year, but I think what we have here before us is for instance, the Cape Center and the multi-gen facility. Those two things are underway, engineering and so forth. We have a lot of wastewater and lift station improvements. There's force mains. Redoing the lift stations is probably an ongoing project every 20 years, basically. It seems like you get hit with that. Several of them, or one of them, two of them. And then there's a lot of stormwater park improvements, and we got the little Wagner Park and the little Long Point Park, and those type of things are all underway. And this is just more or less a year that we're going to complete a lot of projects that we started. That I think that it'd be amazing how many we're going to complete. There's other things that are on this that will be in a future date, like the continuation of the multi-generator facility, the facility up there with the park, the splash pad. There's several other things that have been implemented on the phase 2 of that, but there's quite a bit going on here, and I think the total, something like $134 million it was, or something. Quite a lot of money, but there's a lot of projects being completed. A lot of it is mandatory stuff that we got to do, the wastewater treatment place and facility and those type of things. That's something you have to keep up. Otherwise, you're looking at hundreds of thousands of dollars fine just for one little incident. So I look at this stuff pretty strong. I think the city's doing great with a lot of it, and people ask a lot of questions. Why are you doing that? Why? Well, there's a lot of it that's mandatory that we have to do it. It's not something that every day they make reports out there. Every day they read that wastewater, and it's reported to the state. And if they don't like it, you're going to hear about it. So it's something that I think is very important. Council, we're open to discussion on this, and if the public has anything they want to weigh in on this, more than be glad to let them do it.
Okay, I'll start. I'm very much in favor of the progress that we've been making as a city. I think that about 90% or 99% of our residents are very happy. That's why they have chosen to live here in Cape Canaveral. And I think that we're moving in the right direction. And I think we should just continue. I believe that we need to be proactive rather than reactive, especially when it comes to our sewer and water system. And I think we're doing all the right things. We're way ahead when it comes to the resiliency, sustainability, way, way ahead of many of the cities. And I think we're doing the right thing as far as the lagoon goes. We have talked about that, and we've had workshops. We're doing all the right things. We had a meeting last week about hurricane prep. And I think all of these things are very valuable, especially to new residents. I brought some older people from our condo, and they appreciated and they felt more confident about going through possibly their first hurricane. So I think we are moving in the right direction. People where I live at Solana on the River are very happy, and I talk to residents every day when I'm bike riding. They're very happy here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll touch on this a little bit, and it's a lot of big projects that we're starting here, and we're in the midst of several of them. The latest is a little dog park right outside. What's the name of it? Space Park?
Rover Space.
It's been completed. It cost a small amount of money, but it's something that people have been asking for. But I had give you a wrong figure on, and I'd like to correct it now since I read my notes way back on this project. It says that it was $2.87 thousand for the road, and I gave you a 2.7 or something, 2.8 million, I'm sorry, for the road that we're getting. And that's the West Central Boulevard, and it's $2.87 million that the investors are paying impact fees to do widening Central and Thurston Boulevard. So I think I told you 2 point something. Lots of these projects are small, but they're important. A good example, and the mayor may have mentioned this while I was reading here. We've got a new park coming by Cumberland Farms. That's where A1A and North Atlantic split, and it's been tore up. Now we're putting mast arms in there for the stoplights. But it's well, not a little, but it amounts to a $30,000 park there at 9,000 at Astronaut. It'll be a location of probably a place where you say, from there, I'm 3 blocks on the left. It'll be a direction finder. But a lot of these, and I'm rambling on them, but one important thing is most of these are projects that's going to help the Lagoon Protection Initiative. Several things that we have done in taking care of the stormwater, putting the reclaimed water, what we don't use, into the retention area up under the ballpark. There are twofold projects. We stop one problem and also stop another in the midst. I was opposed to this in the beginning. I didn't see the true value of it investing. I really wanted to save the money we had, and I guess that comes from old age. But council says, and with the city manager, which is very progressive, you need to spend the money. It doesn't do any good in the savings account if you're not going to use it. And fortunately, it has produced a lot of growth. I think 4 out of the last 6 or 7 years, we've been able to lower the property taxes below the rollback. And I don't know how this year, we haven't got this year's budget, but there's a real value in new businesses coming in, investment, new condominiums being built, new homes being built. So all this comes as a result of the city doing something to attract it. We haven't done everything. I just heard tonight that there's something that we can do a lot more that it hasn't got up to our level here, but it will. Years ago, we had, when when the mayor and I started on this city council way back in the 80s, we had a reputation of being not friendly to business. Boy, that was a hard pill to swallow. And, but it was true. We'll fold our arms as, no, we don't want you here. And that was kind of the end of the conversation. We realized that we've been discovered, so a lot of good things is happening. I see the long range on this, the benefit being, I was opposed to some of the expenses, but was in the minority, so we're going ahead with them. And I see most of them coming good. I don't have, excuse me, any closing marks, except to say that we've been working on this. A timetable is set out from stormwater to wastewater improvement. We're way ahead on the wastewater system in having AWT, advanced water treatment, of the other cities. Some have tertiary, but we're ahead of that. We've really done a lot in a little community. Growth has helped us. We opened our arms, letting people come in. Most little communities would die to have 15,000 people coming every night, visitors to. And we get this almost every night. Of course, they get in the boat the next day and they leave. But it's just, we're a gift that we've been very fortunate and very blessed. So I speak for the projects now that I fully understand the investment that we're putting in them, and the investment comes back. And with that, I'll close and speak in favor of this.
I think you already have. Anyway, go ahead, Mr. Morrison. You got.
Yep. So these projects, I think we got around 10 projects, and that when we look at them, there's quite a few parks in there, but the one project makes up a lot of the funds, as the council said, with the lagoon. There's no doubt. I think $6.5 million is allocated towards making sure that stormwater projects and all these issues that are affecting our lagoon are being done, and that makes me very happy. If we had to rank them, that one would certainly go to the top. The Central Streetscape project is something that I think is going to really help. I'm looking forward to see that one happen. And then when we look at safety issues, this all came out of the strategic planning meeting that we attended, and one of the big things that came out of that meeting was, focusing more efforts along A1A in regards to safety and traffic. Some good conversations and ideas stormed around about how we can handle that. A lot of fast driving, happening, and working with our local precinct to do that. They weren't at that meeting, so it's not really fair to say that they were aware at it, but I would like for this council to consider bringing this. I saw in your evaluation, Mayor Hogue, you expressed some of your concerns there, and I appreciated that. I don't want that to go lost. I remember that was a big part of our conversation that we talked about, and so if we could make sure that we are addressing those issues as a goal to make A1A safer. Every year we make a formal proclamation. Josh set me straight one time. He said it's called State Road A1A, and that's a friendly reminder to me. I absolutely love that because it's the state's road. It's not ours, and there's some issues you can walk down and you can create a long list of everything from aesthetics to maintenance to crosswalk, safety, speed limits, on and on. They're all addressed in those proclamations. But what we can do locally with our precinct, I hope that the council and all of us can direct the city manager and staff to work to ensure that we have the right support there. I know that last year in the budget, we wanted, I think the city manager mentioned last time, I think there was a proposal for 2 officers to be added on, and I believe we only ended up, I think there was a compromise was made, only 1 was added on. So Commander Moros, I don't think got what she asked for, but coming back this year, hopefully we're able to add that second one on, and I think that hopefully will help to address some of those concerns as a safety piece in there. And then we really get into what I've been outspoken about is, finishing the basics, sidewalks where it makes sense, try to finish those. And I know that developers can pay those sidewalks, but I'd like to see us put those as a priority. We've got the funds allocated, but if we can front load that cash, we're not afraid to take loans out on certain park projects. And you certainly have taken a lot of loans out for stormwater, but I'd like to see the same tenacity towards sidewalks, because the old funny saying is the greatest way to get the kids off the streets is to build them a sidewalk to walk on. And so there's certain areas that you walk down and you say, and hey, that person needs to get out of the road. Well, there's no other place for them to go. I wouldn't call it unsafe. Don't hear me say that today. I think that we've addressed sidewalks for the most part in the areas that are in critical need, and there's a lot smarter people on our staff working with engineers and studies to make sure that this is a priority. And Josh has done an excellent job of communicating with me and Jeff Ratliff on master plans. But this is that time of year where we get to say our goals. I hope to see that as a priority as well. And then we get into a lot of parks. Cape Canaveral City Park is out of the gates. That's well underway, and Cape View are the Cape Centers behind it. These smaller parks, Southgate Wagner Pocket Park, the Galactic Park, those two I think make up a little over $100,000 coming, I think, out of the general fund. Just wanted to be careful that those don't happen until we make sure that those priorities are done. And as Councilmember Randall said, they do make the community nicer, and I do think that that's why businesses move here, when you can take a little strip of land, get an easement, and polish it up, dress it up. So I'm looking forward to a lot of the outcomes here. Dog park is an exciting thing. That's something that's been since the visioning days, way back. There was a need for that. It was a controversial issue, but this year, this staff can pat themselves on the back for executing on that and getting that done, and I think in a very cost-efficient way. So hats off to you, and I hear continuous compliments about that dog park. It's always fun. I end up taking that street more often because it's a little bit more entertaining for me now. So thank you all for this strategic planning meeting, coming together and being able to collaborate. I support these. I've been outspoken on certain ones and how I feel, and I haven't changed my mind. I just hope that we can prioritize them, and we'll see how it all ends up. So thank you.
Okay, I just want to go ahead and say that I think that Cape Canaveral has one of the best stormwater systems currently in the area, and I appreciate all the effort from staff that's going into that. Councilman Morrison also mentioned kids and safe streets. I think that's one of the driving forces behind maybe the multi-generational center to get some of those kids off some of these presidential streets and give them something structured to do. I'm looking for that to get started and get built hopefully in the next 2 years. But I like the direction that the city's going. I think most of the residents, majority of the residents like the direction of the city. I talk to people that haven't been in our city for a couple of years and are amazed at what the city of Cape Canaveral has accomplished. I hope we move forward, and I'm looking to all these issues or all these items on this priorities I look to go ahead and approve. Thank you.
Okay.
Mayor, one important point is something very, item D, Josh, correct me if I'm wrong, the follow-up meeting, I didn't want to overlook that. It says that we're going to bring back the vision, mission, and values. Is that true, or are we voting on that tonight? It's the last page right before the strategic planning. At a future regularly scheduled city council meeting, the city council will discuss the results of the treat and formally adopt the goals, mission statement, vision statement, and organizational values. Are we voting on that tonight or just the projects?
Well, yeah, I think paragraph D is what we're here doing tonight. Yeah. In the follow-up meeting, we're going to be asking the council to do those things that are in the recommendation. So the follow-up meeting is occurring right now.
Okay, I read it a little different. I thought it was everything but that. Follow-up meeting is to go after. Seems pretty clear, but could be wrong. If that's the case, if we are, I would like a follow-up meeting for the reason, did we end up making those, are we making those changes to the vision statement? Is that in here? Because, yes. Oh, If so, I am not in support of changing the vision statement. I think the reason why we changed, or one of the reasons why, is that we are going to remove things that we accomplished. I think that we need to be a keeper of the vision and maintain the vision. Just because we accomplish something, we don't delete the word or take the word away. So I would be in support of saying that we can insert the word maintain, but if we envision safe streets, well, we still want to maintain safe streets, and we can, I think, keep that in front of us for decades to come. But to remove, there were other changes that I think it made it read a little better. I'm in support of those, but removing, I think it was dog parks was going to be removed because we accomplished it. I'd like to see that we keep that, and there's other opportunities maybe for small dog parks like that. So other than that, thank you for clarifying.
So as far as the vision statement, we've changed that in my time here now three different retreats, including the last one, which would have been 2018. It's to stay relevant. It's an evolving document. It's a living document. That thing is over 10 years old. And we talked about this at the retreat, our job is to maintain those things. So to add in the word maintain, it's part of it already. And we envision these things, and we don't envision maintaining them. We do maintain them. So we did talk about that at the retreat, and you did make this point. I think we had this conversation already, but if anybody wants to jump in on that.
Well, that's fine if we don't put the word maintain, but don't take away the dog park, is my opinion. That we got together and we said we want to be a dog-friendly city. We want to have, I think we took that out completely. Pet-friendly is just gone. And I think this is a very pet-friendly city. And so we can maintain it, we can keep it, but I would be in favor of keeping that in here so you can maintain it.
So does the vision statement ever change if we reach our goal?
The vision statement shouldn't change that much. No, you want to see it and keep it in front of you, and that's why you're right. That's why we do it the way we do. We don't scratch it with a pencil and paper. You know, we put nice and stickers up, and we keep it in front of us and put it on lots of documents. And so, no, I don't. I think, you know, unsubstantial changes is good, but my perspective is you keep that vision statement, and if you accomplish those goals, well, you are living your vision, and that's...
Visions change, so, I mean, I look at it this way. You know, the vision statement originally this is basically the same statement, original, but different wording. There's things been added to that statement. So the original vision statement is not original no more. There's things that have been added. It gets changed, and it will probably get changed as you keep going. I mean, you can't, otherwise your vision statement is going to be a big, thick book if you try to keep implementing new ideas into the vision statement and maintain the old ones along with it. Yeah, and the maintaining the old ones, the vision statement that originally was implemented, that should be maintained. But I don't think you can keep a vision statement intact as it was originally wrote and not change anything and keep changing and moving forward in the city. Things have to change. I used to be a believer, kind of like, I didn't like change until maybe 15, 20 years ago. I started seeing what change can do to different things, and then I got real active in making those changes happen because they are only happening for the better. But to keep a vision statement, the vision statement, the original vision statement is still there. It's never going to change. We were very adamant about that vision statement, but the vision statement has to change as time changes. But the original vision statement will never change. It's still there.
Yeah, I think
mean,
that
I understand
there's
where you're going
timeless
from.
pieces. I mean, the Constitution changes as
What if
little
we want
as
to
we
add a
can, but
canoe park?
there's
or
time. Yeah, the word
different, we
pets.
keep adding things to it. It's going to be pages and pages.
No, I'm not
pages.
saying add to it. I'm saying just to keep it and improve it. But
you want to keep dog parks in it, but there's other things in it that you don't care if they're gone.
Verbs and adjectives, I don't care necessarily if they're gone, but a pet friendly is a
Walkable,
substantial.
bikeable, friendly community,
But would
blah,
take
blah,
it.
blah.
Yeah. So when we become bikeable, walkable, are we going to take that out?
I don't think it'll ever become completely walkable and bikeable.
Okay,
In my
then-
days, I don't know about your days or
Well,
anybody.
there's different levels. Just pet friendly is.
But you're always striving to get
We
there.
don't mention pets at all. And I think we should keep that in there. This is petty. I don't want to spend any more time, but keeping pet.
For the record,
Pet
I just want to
friendly.
go ahead and say that everybody on the council is pet friendly. I don't want this to come up later on that we weren't pet friendly or something like this. We are all pet friendly. I just want to make that point.
I'll sign a letter to that if you want. But I'd like
I
to
think,
just, I'd
I
like to
think,
just move on. If we're done, I'm gonna call the question for a motion, please.
Sure.
Item number 7. I'd like to have a motion to move on. Approve it as is written, and let's go. We're actually approving what we are funding. We're not approving whether the vision statement, blah, blah, blah. I mean, I'm looking at what we're doing and implementing all these things. I think if you can't vision that, man, it doesn't have to be. We should put lift stations in the vision. We should do all that. It just goes on and on and on. But there's certain things that maybe touches your heart, but I want to move on, and I want a motion for item number 7.
I'd like to move that we approve the city council 2019 priorities, projects, initiatives, and a 5-year capital improvement project as written here.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the council's 2019 priority projects by Mrs. Raymond, a second by Mayor Pro Tem Brown. Call the question, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Brown,
4.
Mayor Hogue,
Or
Councilmember Morrison,
4.
Councilmember Randalls,
for the motion.
Councilmember Raymond.
4.
Wow.
Okay,
Mayor, can I get clarification on that motion? Part of the subject matter was read into the record as part of that motion, but that motion also included, as I understand, the subject matter included approval of the minutes from the retreat, the vision statement, mission statement, organizational values, and the following projects. Was it your intent to approve the whole item?
no,
Or
this is
just
written.
portion of it?
Yeah,
I said as written, right here is what we're looking at.
Okay, I just want,
She
Yep.
did she say as written?
as written.
Okay, because you read part of it, and then I must have missed the as written part. Okay.
It said as written. Okay. You're welcome. Sorry. Okay, item number 8. This is appointing a city delegate to the national, or the Florida League of Cities Convention, August the 17th, 15th, and 17th in Orlando. This is the voting delegate for the city to represent the city of Cape Canaveral before the Legislative Priority Board hearing, and that takes place on Saturday afternoon. I'm looking for somebody to,
I'll put that in.
I like, I know Councilman, I know Rocky, he's already on 59 boards. I know Angela's been active with the Florida League of Cities, as has Councilman Morrison. I'd like to go ahead and, since she's our person right now, our electee, I'd like to go ahead and make a motion that we keep her.
Angela? Is your motion for Angela to be the
Yes.
delegate? Angela, do you accept that motion?
sure I do. I'd be honored. Thank you.
And
Okay.
I certainly would second that motion. That's a good, you're a great leader, lady. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm honored to represent the city of Cape Canaveral. Thank you.
Oh, but I wanted to do it. No, I'm just kidding. I've done it enough. Okay, we have a motion to appoint Mrs. Raymond as our voting delegate, and we have a motion and a second. So would you call the question, please?
Mayor Pro Tem Brown,
4.
Mayor Hogue,
Or?
Councilmember Morrison,
4.
Councilmember Randalls,
For the motion.
Councilmember Raymond.
4.
Thank you, Angela. Okay, item number 10 is ratify and city manager's performance evaluation.
Did we miss 9? Okay.
That's number 9.
It is 9, you're right.
Okay, council, we have, before us, you've had the results of the evaluations put on, you saw them. We did see Mr. Morrison's, I saw it anyway, with like 3 weeks later, but it's here. And job before us tonight is Mr. Green is not here to speak for himself, so we're to evaluate his performance and base on that a salary increase, which he is due by contract basically. And normally there's a 3% COLA cost that we would work for or go above, whatever the council desires. Don't be all quiet. I personally, I've sat probably with, well, with all of Mr. Green's and many before that. And normally we start off at 3%. If somebody feels like 3% is an adequate number, then make a motion or make a motion towards a higher percentage. Bear in mind, Mr. Green's salary today was $150. We had that addendum noted to us.
$151,840.
$151,840, correct?
Yes.
So,
Sometimes, Mayor, this is the month of May or June, and so we don't have our budget for the next year, but not yet. It's probably almost finished. But I'd support the percentage that we set aside for our employees up to a maximum of 3% as a starting point. I think the employees are valuable. It depends on the percentage. Of course, the more you make, the same percentage applies, so it gets up to a substantially larger amount. If we get to 3%, we're looking at $4,555.20 a year, which breaks down to really weekly, daily, and hourly. But we do give our employees, I don't know what we're giving this year because we haven't seen the budget, but we normally allocate a certain percentage towards them. Now, some may get 1 and some get 2 and some get 3, but it's a set amount. So I would certainly support, just as a very beginning, the same amount that we set aside for our employees in the percentage rate. I don't know if we have the, well, I know that's what he's making now. Currently, is the red what he's making now? Yes. Well,
The red?
that's what I figured the 3% on.
right, that's what I was basing it on. I
Yeah.
talked with Mr. Green
So
about it.
that
I'm
would
sure
be,
we all did.
3% would be a yearly raise of $4,555.20. If indeed that's what we're able to give the employees. See, we haven't seen the budget yet, and there may not be money in there for nothing.
We never see the budget before we do this.
I know we
This is
never do.
always
Do you-
a-
Can you say what the employees
I
are
can
getting
tell
this
you
year?
that amount of money is available to our employees as well as the city manager.
3%?
Okay,
We're doing fine on our personnel costs.
that's good, thank you.
Then I support it. I support that.
3% or what do you support?
Yes, I
3%?
support that.
Okay, okay.
Yes. It's fair.
Marson, it's down to you.
I don't know exactly, why we would give a raise right now. You can look at the evaluation and see that mine is dramatically different from the rest of the council. So I can certainly understand where you're coming from. You've expressed how you feel. I really wish Mr. Green was here tonight. But I'm going to withhold my comments on the reasons why, because I think that being as professional as possible, he should be here. I can make it a discussion item if the public wants to hear it. But Mr. Green, in my opinion, is compensated very handsomely. I think he's going to be well over closer to $156,000 now. He's got the well-funded retirement plan, and car allowance at $4,200 a year. But there is some areas that are lacking with him professionally. As far as the city as a whole, I'm very happy with the staff, but specifically Mr. Green, I think has a lot to gain in some areas. He's served our city, came in as a change agent back in 2010, and he's done, I think, what a lot of the council at that time in the city wanted. And over the past few years, I think he said a couple of years ago how much time he sees having left. I wish he was here tonight to maybe he would have shared that with us. But at any event, I highly encourage this council to seriously start looking at and planning and wherever necessary the next city manager. And this isn't a negative comment that David Green has openly expressed. There's not much time left. I think he said a couple of years. Well, we're getting to that
Mr. Morrison,
point.
we're here to evaluate a performance review, not discuss the future, the ins and out about Mr. Green, what he's going to do.
Okay, fair.
We're here to discuss the amount of salary increase that this council feels he is due, and that is what we're here to discuss. And we will not have an open decorum on Mr. Green's future. That's Mr.
Perhaps we need to.
So
I'll wrap it up. And it's been a long day.
Perhaps we need to
if you
say
don't-
that your evaluation did not come in at the proper time, and that
That's all
this
here
is a
and
problem.
there. We're here. We saw the evaluations. We saw everybody's evaluation. Mr. Morrison did not have his in on time, so I didn't even consider Mr. Morrison's in my thoughts. It wasn't there for me to look at until the day we got our agenda, and it was too late. So I had already made my decision, what I was going to do, and I talked with Mr. Green, and my thoughts with Mr. Green were it's fine with him. He said, whatever y'all decide to do. So the floor is open to we have a motion to the 3% and a second. And if that's what we want to do, that's what we're going to do. I don't want to be critiquing your evaluation or anything. We're here to discuss one thing, and that's the salary. So we're going to do that.
My evaluation, for the record, was provided to all the
I
council.
don't want to hear your evaluation. We don't want to hear it.
There's no ordinance
We're
that makes
going to
my
call for a
evaluation
motion on
invalid.
Mr. Green's salary at 3%.
We're having a discussion.
We're going
right
to call
now.
for a motion.
Nobody's called
We're not
for a
going to
motion.
critique your
What you're
evaluation.
doing is you're strong-arming a motion.
No, I'm
Mr.
not
Mayor.
strong-arming you.
Yes, you
You
are.
did not follow policy, then we're going to follow policy.
Point me to that policy.
When I have a motion for
There is no policy.
Do I have a
There's
motion
no
for the
policy
3%,
His
please?
evaluation shall be done between May and July, and I communicated and I appreciated the patience of staff to the best of my ability, and I couldn't say they handled it very professional manner. We are moving
Would like
forward.
a
I
motion,
am
please.
sure. I'm sure.
Mr. Morrison, we're through discussing
Point
the
of
item.
order.
A point of order. I'm calling for a motion, and you're still
I am
wanting
not
to
in
discuss.
favor of a pay raise. I will
Well, you can vote
Thank
that
you.
way then. Just vote however you feel.
Thank you. I've made it clear.
But you had your time and day and month and whatever. Like a motion, please, for the 3%. Don't hear a motion?
Wait a minute.
Well,
So moved, I would like to move to give our city manager 3% salary raise based on his city manager performance evaluation that was done by most of us. Thank you.
a second?
Yeah, Randalls would second that, and speak for approval on it.
Okay. We have a motion to approve the 3% by Mrs. Raymond and a second by Mr. Randalls. Would you call the roll, please?
Mayor Pro Tem Brown,
For.
Mayor Hogue,
Or
Councilmember Morrison,
Against.
Councilmember Randalls,
For the motion.
Councilmember Raymond.
Or,
okay, that completes our items.
Just as a clearing point, Mr. Chair, on item 9, that included ratifying the city manager's performance evaluation.
Yes, sir. That's just
and
what it's written.
discuss how to proceed with the provisions of Section 2, which was the salary. So it was one motion for the complete.
Well, it's his
Item.
evaluation. I said to his performance evaluation and his money, his discussion of his raise. And Mrs. Raymond made the motion for this 3%. That was the only thing that we didn't have language fulfilled. So in my opinion, it's a done deal. Mr. Green's evaluation was before us. We all saw it. Like I say, Mr. Morrison didn't get his until last minute, long before it would have been on this agenda if it would have been on time, but it wasn't on time, so. I have nothing else to discuss. We went through our agenda. Would like any reports, Mr. Garganese? Come on down the line, because
Yeah,
we're going to.
just touch on one quick thing. If any council members have questions about the timelines and anything from the strategic retreat, please let me, staff, or the city manager know. Some of these things will be done before others. They're all happening concurrently. So when Councilmember Morrison said I wanted to see some of the things happen before the other, those parks will be done before some of the other things on this list because of funding and size of project and timing. So if you have any questions, you want to know when things are being done and how and why, please reach out to us.
Mr. Brown, I have nothing to report other than the conference was good. We got a lot of information, and I will be attending the next one.
Nothing to report. I want to once again thank the staff for all the hard work and our first responders. I like the direction the city's moving, and let's keep moving forward. Thank you.
I have no reports. Thank you.
I think you know what I do. I've kept very busy, once again, going to Space Coast League of Cities, things that Florida League of Cities have going, the Transportation Policy Committee, as I said. And I think that these things are important. Today I went to ethics training once again. I feel that a public office is a public trust, and I think that those things are important. Ethics is very important. And I think that starts with respect for one another and respect for our city staff. And I've continued to go to planning and zoning, code enforcement, hurricane prep, and the opening of Rover's Space at Fridays Fest. I think those are things that we need to support. And as I said, we're moving in the right direction. We need to be educated so that we can become a good public servant. And I think that's about all. Thank you very much, Mayor.
Audience, anything, staff, anything? Meeting adjourned.